Okie doke. So, how to network when you don't know how to start? What we're going to be talking about today is really how to build meaningful career connections. We can all just go out and, pepper the world with lots and lots of outreach, but we want to do it in a strategic way so that we're not wasting time, right? So, why is networking so important? It's so important because 80% of jobs are actually found through networking. This is from collegerecruiter.com, and it's a really important stat to remember because we can spend all our time sending in applications to the online websites like Indeed and LinkedIn and all those things, and that's not bad to do, but it's definitely not the most effective thing that we can be doing in our job search. So I applaud you all for joining us today as we jump in and figure out how exactly to network in a way that will be most beneficial. And as many of you said, networking is hard. As John Ralphio in Parks and Rec says, it is the worst. And today I'm hoping to give you some perspective on networking that makes it a little bit less of the worst thing ever, which a lot of us feel when we go out and start networking, especially if you're a little bit introverted like me. My early networking events, or even now sometimes, a lot of standing in the corner, hoping no one makes eye contact with me. All right. But here's what we need to know, and here's what I hope to convey by the end of this presentation. Number one, networking is a skill that you learn. It is not something that's inherent, although there are people that are naturally outgoing and talkative. They're not the only ones who will be networking in the world. There's lots of different ways to network, and if you work on it, you can find the way that works for you. So it's a skill that you can learn. Number two, networking is more about the other person than it is about you. And I think that's what freaks us out a lot, is we're so worried about how we're coming off that we forget that actually there's another person in this conversation and we should just focus on them, and it takes pressure off ourselves. Number three, that it feeds on your curiosity. So if you feel like you need to be an expert before you go out there, that's actually not the case. You just have to have lots of questions. And then number four, how to start networking today. We're going to do a bit of a group exercise toward the end here, so get ready for that. And we'll jump right into point number one. Networking is a skill that you can learn. If you practice, you will improve. Now, here's the big stat as to why networking is such a tough spot for most people. 40% of the world is shy. 40% of the world used to be shy, and 20% of the world isn't shy at all. So that means that 20% probably isn't on this call. They don't need tons of networking help. They're out there talking to people anyway. But for those 80% of the world, myself included, who are shy or used to be shy, it shows that we're in good company. If everyone is shy, then it's okay to reach out because you're just a couple of shy people trying to connect. It's not like, as scary of a thing when you realize you're in such good company, and there are 40% of people that used to be shy, which means you can overcome your shyness. And the key thing here is that you need to know that you're going to get it wrong before you get it right. My first informational interview was an introduction that I had in college during a how to get a job seminar that I took to a leading advertiser in the city of Chicago. I was so excited for this that I over-prepped. I read every white paper, every single blog post, every single thing this person had ever written. And I thought I was going into this meeting like all really well prepared. I wore a suit, I showed up at this agency, and I sat down, and the first thing he asked is, "Why are you here?" And I was so ready to talk about advertising that I forgot to think about how to talk about myself or how to ask him questions. And I actually had over-prepared so much that I ended up choking on my elevator pitch. And it was so bad, I tried 3 times to get the elevator pitch out before the conversation sort of petered out. And he was like, I got work to do. Thanks for coming by. Now, I tell that story because it's pretty rough to hear, right? But the great thing about it is that years later, I sent him an email and I said, "Thank you so much for the learning experience. That experience motivated me to learn how to network. And I've spent the last few years building that skill set. And it was one of the best learning experiences of my life." We ended up getting coffee and we ended up having a great 3-hour conversation. And it just goes to show that even if you have a really, really bad networking experience, it doesn't mean anything. He actually didn't even remember it or remember who I was. So it's okay to mess up. It's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to send an email that doesn't get a response. because there is an unlimited amount of opportunity out there to meet new people or revisit old contacts and make a second first impression. This brings us to the point that networking is more about asking questions and leading with what I like to call excited curiosity. If we go into a networking situation and we just expect the other person to open up and tell us things without us prompting them, we're going to get a lot of weird, awkward silences. So you're going to want to have questions prepped and give a little bit of thought before you go into the conversation about what it is you hope to learn from this person. And then you want to think about what's worked in the past. We all have people in our lives, coworkers, friends, etc. We've all gotten a job at some point, potentially. And so what have you done in the past? What has worked and what hasn't? We want to lean into our strengths so we don't, if going to giant networking events with thousands of people is not your style, how do you get one-on-one coffees, right? There's a lot of different ways to approach this. Then you need to know what it is you want. And this is getting specific about your job search. So do you know what city you want to live in, what industry you want to be a part of, and what job title you hope to have? Before you start networking, you really want to at least lock down a first draft of those three things, so that when you reach out to someone, you can say, I'm really interested in talking to you because you live in this city, work in this industry, and have this job title. And that's really what we want to do, is we want to connect with people who are doing the jobs that we hope to do in the future. Then we want to say, instead of networking, let's just nerd out. I think the word networking and the term kind of gets this weird marketing sales sort of sleazy slant to it over the years. And I'd like to sort of mix that up for you. So instead of thinking, I need to go network because I'm supposed to for my job search, say, I want to nerd out with people that think like me, that are interested in the same things as me. How do I find those people? Because it's easier to connect with someone who you share a common interest with than to have a conversation with someone that you really have no common ground with. And this is a great example here, Code in the Dark. It's a tech meetup that wanted to also have fun. So they have these coding competitions, and some of them are even Star Wars themed in order to make sure that people are having fun and feeling comfortable. And if you're comfortable and you're having fun, networking isn't so bad. And another great example of this is someone I know, or someone I was coaching, who, they were saying there were no sports tech meetups in their town, and they were lamenting that they weren't going to be able to network. And I said, well, if there's no sports tech meetup, that means there's an opportunity for you to create it. So they went online, created a sports tech meetup, immediately got about 30 people signed up because there was no other sports tech meetup in that town. And then they were the one that was reaching out to CEOs, asking people to come speak. Now, what's really cool about that is one of the CEOs they reached out to said, hey, after this meetup, can you talk to my second in command? I think we might have some positions open if you're looking for a job. So this person never even went to that guy with a job. He went to that guy with value and saying, I'm going to share this audience with you and give you a platform, which naturally made them more appealing for the job that they were hoping to get. And then who do you already know? If you're really, really scared to network, if it's something that you just don't want to do, start with people you know. Let's have a few practice informational interviews before you go to that job, that dream job that you really hope to get. Maybe meet with some people that you used to work with and practice asking questions, practice having these conversations, practice sitting down over coffee. It's good to get comfortable and build a skill set, as well as reach out to people that you hope to meet. And then you need to figure out where people are. Are they online, offline, or other? The reason I have this Clash of Clans image here is because I was coaching someone and they were part of a Clash of Clans Slack group. Now, I didn't know that this was a thing. I thought this seemed kind of crazy. But in that Slack group, he mentioned he was job seeking, and there were a bunch of other developers who were also in that Slack group. So they ended up all getting together for a drink, talking about Clash of Clans and talking about the job search, and eventually helping him find a job. So it's not just the traditional places like meetup.com and LinkedIn and things like that, although those are amazing places to start. It also is, these other spots, these Clash of Clans Slack groups. I don't know. Be a little bit more creative. Go on Reddit, go on Quora, see who's out there, see who you can connect with. And just to give you a few examples, online and offline communities Online communities are Slack, forums, LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, blogs, YouTube, commenting on people's blogs, commenting on people's YouTube videos, commenting on people's Instagrams or Twitter. I know tons of people that find jobs through Twitter. It's kind of a fantastic place to reach out to not only like CEOs, but also, get your foot in the door for jobs. Meetup.com, Eventbrite, hackathons, startup hubs, co-working spaces, alumni events. These are all amazing places offline to check out as well if you haven't thought to do that. Volunteering is a really big thing when it comes to networking, and so is joining professional organizations. I think one of the hardest things about networking is we feel like we're just sort of going there to get a job, rather than going there to do something with people who are also interested in the same things as us. So rather than trying to get something, try to contribute to something that someone's building, like a professional organization or a meetup group or a volunteer organization, things like that. And then you want to know what sort of relationships you're building, So you want to not just go in trying to, squeeze every drop of a job out of every person you talk to. You're trying to build a world around you of people who think like you, who work in the same area as you, and who might be able to help you right now, but if not now, in the future. And you also want to be helping them. So it's not just about the next job, it's about the next 20 jobs that you have in your career, because we have so many jobs these days. You want to be not just thinking about today's relationship, but also the relationship over time. And this brings us to the idea that it's more about them than it is about you. Take a sip real quick. So we live in a reciprocal society, and one where people want to help. They want to help because people have helped them in the past, and they know if they're kind, other people will be kind, kind of that karma attitude. And so if you think like, oh, reaching out to this person is going to bother them, or I'm going to be an intrusion, or I'm going to be something that's like, distracting them from their day, just know that there is a large group of people out there that are waiting for people to reach out and get coffee. I know this happens all the time. People reach out to me and say, hey, can I buy you coffee and learn something from you? And I'm happy to do that because I'm happy to get a free coffee and also help that person out in return. All right, now let's think about who to reach out to. Most of the time when people are reaching out, they think, let's go straight to the recruiter. The problem is that recruiters are typically working for the company, not the person. So if you're reaching out to a recruiter, they're dealing with hundreds of people and you get lost in the shuffle. Instead, the best person to reach out to is going to be the person who's doing the job that you wish you were doing. That's going to be the person who might have a quick, all they have to do is refer you to their manager or the person down the hall, rather than trying to get through that recruiter. It's just very messy sort of path going through the recruiters. If they reach out to you, that's great. But if you're just sending messages out to recruiters, you're missing a great opportunity to reach out to the masters, which are the people who do what you hope to do. All right. Now, here's the other thing. Why are you reaching out? Most people are reaching out to get a job, and that gets very annoying for the people who are getting those messages. And there's this old saying, if you ask for a job, you'll get advice. But if you ask for advice, you'll probably get a job. People don't like being told to do something for you, but they do like being asked for their expertise. So if you reach out from a, hey, you look like an expert, I'd love to learn from you perspective, then people will be like, wow, this person's really inquisitive and seem interested and are trying to learn. I think that they're the type of curious person that would be good for this job. All right, so it's a bit counterintuitive, but if you ask for advice, you're more likely to get a job than if you were just to go straight into, hey, I'm looking for a job. I don't care who you are, just give me something. And then we want to make them feel valued. We don't want to reach out and make someone feel used. And this is something you probably see in marketing communications. If all they do is constantly tell you to buy their product, you delete them. But if they're saying, here's some value for you, here's some value for you, here's some interesting information for you, also we have these products, that's a much more helpful way to go. And the same with you. You say, here's an article, here is a connection, here is something that you might find interesting that could help you in your life. Also, I'm looking for work if you might know of anyone. And then you need to make it easy for them. A lot of times when we send out emails, we say things like, let me know if you have any questions. That's putting homework in their court. Or tell me when you're available. That's telling them to open their calendar and stress out about scheduling. What you want to do is be very specific with what you're asking for. I'd love to meet for coffee on Wednesday at noon. Are you available? It's specific. All they have to do is say yes or no, and it makes it very easy for them to respond or not respond. And then if Wednesday comes and goes, you have a deadline to follow up with. Hey, I reached out about Wednesday, I never heard back. How about next Thursday? What would you say? And if they keep ignoring you, you move on to the next person. But being specific and not telling them to do work for you, I think a very common one is like, here's my resume, let me know if you have any questions. No one wants to read it. Well, first of all, no one wants to read it, but they also don't have time. So make it easy for them. Don't give them homework of reading your resume. Then think about what the value is that you bring. Now we might think, oh, I don't have any value. I don't bring any value to the table, but that's not true. Just having a really interesting conversation is quite valuable, especially if you're asking them about their work. A lot of people love to talk about what they do, and they don't have a lot of people to talk about that with. Maybe they go home at the end of the day and they want to talk about their job, but the kids are there and the food's on the table and the blah, blah, blah. They just, you don't always have that outlet. So having someone to have intellectual conversations with is always a great value add. You can also introduce them to people in your network and buy them a coffee. Like, what's $4 for a half hour of someone's time? It's actually really kind, and people are really grateful for that type of interaction. And then think about how you can help them. Everyone has a problem that they're working on. So you could say, hey, what are you working on right now? And what is something blocking you from achieving the things you're most excited to achieve? And they might say, well, I'm really excited to work on this big project, but I'm so caught up in the day-to-day of these little minute tasks. And you can say, well, I have some freelance hours. If you'd like me to handle those small tasks for your business, you can go work on the bigger things. And boom, you just created yourself a position and solved one of their problems, all in a fail swoop. And then think about how much you can ask for it in a networking interaction. Typically at the end of an interaction, you don't want to say, well, that was a great half hour, give me a job, right? You want to say something like, is there anyone else that you would recommend I chat with? Or in the future, would you be open to passing along my resume if a job opening were to come up? And that's a great thing, because you're not asking them to do anything right this second. You're asking them to commit to a future action. And having someone commit to a future action means that 3 weeks from now, when you get that ping, and there's a new job at the company, they've already said yes to your request to pass along your information. And it'll make it that much easier to reach back out. And next, we're going to dive into your curiosity, because these are the things that you're really going to want to talk about. All right, so when you actually sit down for that one-on-one coffee, what are you going to talk about? Typically, you want to talk about what they are doing. What are they working on? How are they working on it? What tools are they using? What technology are they using? What are they most interested in? All those types of things. This is a great one. What are they excited about? Ask them this question and just let them go. Let them roll with it and then build on it. They say they're really excited about this new technology that they're bringing in-house. Build on that. Well, how did you pick that technology? What changes will you see that make in your business, and so on and so forth. Ask them how their work impacts their industry, how their company impacts the overall industry. This is something people don't get asked very often, and it makes them really sit back and think about how big of an impact they're having. It makes them feel good. Again, you want them to feel good, feel valued in these conversations, not making it about you, but making it about them and how great they are and the big impact they're having. Then ask them what they wish they could do more of. If they're thinking about the future, then they're like, well, I really want to go do that, but I can't because I have to do my day job. Well, I can help you with your day job so you can go work on the bigger ideas, right? This is how you create positions for yourself, little contract roles, things like that, to get your job search moving forward. Ask them what they're struggling with. Again, if you let them vent, a lot of people just need time, to vent out the things at work that are tough. And then when they're done venting, you might provide a few solutions for them. There was actually someone that I talked to who they were talking to someone and the guy started venting about their dog sitter bailing on them or something like that. And they said, I love dogs. I'd be happy to watch your dog. Suddenly they know the entire family and eventually got a job at that company because they went kind of this weird roundabout way of helping someone with a problem. And now this person knows that this person solves problems. You know, if this person could solve that problem, maybe they can solve some more problems in my life. And then see what barriers you can remove. If you can remove a barrier for someone, you're going to be giving them tremendous value and they're going to want to pay it back. This kind of reiterates what I've been saying all along. How do you eliminate obstacles in their life? If you can provide value to someone, you are valuable to them. And so networking is more about providing value than getting value. And if you provide enough value, value comes back your way. All right, that brings us to the half point. And now we are going to look around the Zoom, say hi to everyone, and do a little bit of networking ourselves. Before we jump into that, I want to jump into the chat and see if there are any questions that came up that we'd like to tackle before we do the breakout. Karen, anything in the chat looking good?
We had a question from Ricardo, actually. Ricardo, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question live? And if not, no pressure. All right, well, Ricardo's question was, how can you be remembered after being introduced to someone or after meeting up with them? How do you maintain that relationship?
That's a really great question, Ricardo. So there's a number of different ways that you can do this, and it depends on your long-term strategy with that person. There is the sort of, you know the company has a job and you want to keep in touch about that job. Then you're going to want to be a little bit more active in the way that you keep in touch. You're going to want to follow up and say, hey, I saw this position. Would you be open to sharing my information? Maybe send them a little bit of, you can send them a number of different things. You send them articles that are relevant to them. You can say like, hey, I found this really interesting article that relates to your industry, thought you might be interested. Also, have you heard anything about that role? I'd love to come in and chat about it if you think that that'd be something that'd be good. But kind of more long-term, let's take a more macro view of it. The best way to sort of stay top of mind with people is to utilize the social networks that you're all a part of in order to pop up in their feed. Now, this is kind of the whole point of social networks. It's to make sure that your face gets in front of people the same way Nike has to keep marketing themselves so you remember them and don't go buy Adidas, right? So if you are not engaging on any of the platforms that you're on, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, things like that, then people will start to forget who you are. So the easiest and lowest lift way of doing that would be to post, daily, weekly, just things about what you're interested in, your industry, interesting ideas that kind of come up. And then if you find something that's interesting to them, tag them in that post. That way you don't have to send like a really awkward, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while email. You can just tag them and say, hey, this looks interesting to what you're working on. And so it's kind of a low lift way of keeping in touch with people over longer periods of time. But then if you want to get more specific, you can say, hey, there's this great event coming up. I thought you'd be interested, and send that via email. There's a lot of different ways to keep in touch. I hope that touches on a few different aspects of your question. It's actually something we could build a whole presentation around as well, how to keep in touch with people. Any other questions before we jump into the breakout?
We had one from David. David, do you want to unmute yourself and ask aloud?
Ooh, we definitely got the 40% shy on this call. No worries.
That's fine. And David, do you want to say it? I've unmuted you just in case.
Hey, David.
I don't know. Hi. Well, I don't know what time it is there, but in my time it's night. So I almost said good evening. Yeah, my time it's 1 a.m. So,
oh, wow.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for jumping on so late. Appreciate that.
Thank you for the opportunity and the knowledge you are sharing. So yeah, I was saying I'm a self-taught developer. I've learned everything pretty much off internet, but I've managed to get some certificates like a PHP certificate, HTML certificate, and recently I got a nano degree after getting a scholarship from Mandela and Google, together with the Udacity. So I would like you to advise me on how I can write my resume, an impressive resume, and if I can be able to land a dream job, like I really want to teach other people about coding. And yeah.
That's really
Yes.
interesting. It's cool that you want to teach people how to code.
Yes.
That I think that point that you made right there is a good starting point. So you want to share your knowledge with other people, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
a great way to build out your resume and also reach out and provide value to people is to try and find ways to share that information. So maybe you create LinkedIn posts, YouTube videos, things like that, that show your knowledge and also help other people and potentially get you to the point where you can maybe do some online tutoring if that's something that you're interested in down the line. But that's also a way that you can build out a robust resume. You're not only working on your projects, your development projects, but you're also building content that teaches people. And so you can post that on LinkedIn on a regular basis. It shows your network that you're someone who not only builds, but also shares what you build. And you kind of keep that circle going, right? You're learning new things, you're sharing those things, you're getting feedback, you're learning new things, you're sharing new things, you're getting feedback. And then if you can build any sort of project of your own in the meantime between now and your next job that showcases your skill set, that's also a really great way to go about it. So I threw a lot
Wow.
at you, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, that's great. I think I like it. Thank
Very
you
cool.
so much.
Well,
Yeah, I'll start
I
right
hope you
away in
connect
the
with me on
morning.
LinkedIn and share some of the things you've been learning in your posts and possibly articles.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been sharing them, but I'm
Cool.
gonna do right away. I'm
Very
gonna,
cool.
yeah, I'm gonna do. Okay, on Facebook, I've been really engaging, like sharing, like solving problems in friends' comments, and maybe asking questions and then answering them, things like that. But I've not been really sharing comprehensive solutions.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Well,
So.
that's a good starting point. So you can go back to the things that you've already done, take the
Mhm,
best bits, and then make them more robust. And then you
mhm,
can link to that from your resume, or let's say your LinkedIn profile more likely. And then on your resume, put like, you know, building my own little project on the side where I help people with these types of problems. And so that's how you sort of continue to build your personal brand online, as well as fill out your job search materials as well.
well, yeah, this is awesome.
Very
Yes,
cool.
thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
All right, we're getting into the second part of the call where we're going to break out into sessions.
Okay.
Okay, so in this part of the call, we're going to break you out into groups of two, I believe, because I think we have a small enough group here, where you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to talk about why you decided to sign up for this workshop, and you're going to ask how you can help the other person in their job search. So we're going to be sending you these three prompts so that you can use this as a starting point. And the whole goal of this breakout session is to practice asking questions and doing that one-on-one networking. So spend, the first 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes with one person asking the other one, and then switch and have the other person ask the first person. So that we can both get, probably 10 to 15 minutes of chatting and practicing these techniques that we've gone over today. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yes, to me it does.
Great. And you will see a pop-up that says you've been invited to join a breakout room, and you'll have to click accept or okay in order to actually go into that room. So hang tight 1 second.
And because I'm a career coach and I create content, I'm trying to reassess how I use the Instagram and other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But I think LinkedIn is probably the one that's going to be best for everyone here.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought of using medium.com, for example, as a platform to bring your stuff out and engage with people?
I have. I think LinkedIn's Pulse is a pretty good competitor to Medium, and I'm much more of a visual video person than a writer. So
Okay.
I've tried to write before, and I tend to be overly critical with my writing, and I tend to be much better off the cuff with video. But it looks like we have everyone back. How's everyone doing? How are the breakouts? Learn some interesting things about each other? Anyone have one thing to share from your breakout that you found interesting? There's got to be one interesting thing out there.
I want to volunteer that Walid and Mohammed were put in a breakout room and they just happened to both be from Egypt,
No way.
where it is currently midnight, 12:30, I think. So very small world.
I give serious commitment to everyone who's joining midnight and 1 a.m. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you spending the time. David, what are your thoughts? David, share one thing. Thank you.
I think there might be an unmute audio issue,
Hello?
but I've unmuted you.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Hear ya.
Yeah, so I was in a network session with Marilyn, and she really is an interesting person. At just 23, she's doing accountants as a job, but she told me she studied graphics design, and she loves to do front-end design and coding. I mean, it's amazing to find someone. If it was my country, to find someone who is a graduate in graphics design and then doing accountancy as in every day, but they also want to do coding. I mean, it's interesting. And her dreams, like she wants to go to Japan. She wants to go back home in Honduras and change her country. I mean, that has been pretty amazing for me. Yeah, that's it. And we were able actually to exchange GitHub accounts, GitHub links, and emails. Yeah, so that's been interesting.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Great that folks are speaking up.
Welcome.
You're saying something, Karen?
I was just going to say, I also saw that Marilee's interested in opportunities in Japan, and I'm going to reach out because Mazda is a hiring partner based in Tokyo that's having an info session soon. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so it's good to put out what you're looking for because you never know who will have something.
And I also want to say, like, everyone who joined this call, this is networking. So connect with one another. Everyone who's here, put your LinkedIn profile in the chat if you haven't already. And let's start connecting with each other, because I think, you know, there's such a old school view of networking that it has to be like going to these professional meetups, but really it's all the different interactions you have with anyone related to your industry. So please connect with each other here. And we're towards the end of the call here, so I'm going to wrap it up. Karen, are there any other things that you want to share before we maybe answer a question or two and call it a day?
I guess nothing else. If this was helpful, let us know. We'd love to do it again if there's interest. And Martin, if you would love to learn more from Martin, is having an office hour session next Thursday, the 6th at 12 p.m. So an hour and a half before this webinar started, which is much more free flowing, and you can do Q&A there. So feel free to tune into that, and you can find the link on udacity.com/events.
I love it. And we do release videos every week on LinkedIn, the little career tips that I create. So please follow along Udacity on LinkedIn to keep aware of those things. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. Wishing you the best of luck in your job search, and you know, keep us in mind. If you have any questions, shoot them our way and we will do our best to answer them.
All right, thanks everyone.